Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June 26th Project Jupyter IPython developers call. We're following an agenda on Dropbox paper, and that's linked in the chat. So you can follow along there. We will go ahead and get started with updates on Jupyter Lab.
So we are working towards the beta 3 pre-release. We wanted to have it earlier, but we discovered that at some point a lot of services tests have been disabled in a PR, and re-enabling them led us to discover some things that need to be resolved. So that's been the hold up, but ultimately to make for a better release. Some of the things that'll be in there are updates to the services API using async and await instead of, well, I mean, they'll still be promise-based, but they'll be using the new ES6 async and await keywords. New functionality in the URL bar for cloning workspaces and for support for tree URLs and things like that. In the pre-release, we want to have a the extension manager, which was developed outside of Jupyter Lab, and it is it allows you to see listed public Jupyter Lab extensions and install them from the UI. This is a very experimental thing, and it's super cool. A lot of people want it. I've been talking with Vidar about what steps we can take just in case it isn't ready for the actual beta 3. So we thought if we put it in the pre-release, people can see it and use it. And if it turns out that it is a little too experimental, we can put in a setting to make it disabled by default, but ship it anyway so that we can get user feedback on it. Because it's sort of a meta thing, right? You need to be able to try to install extensions with it to see what's wrong. And you can't do that if it's just sitting in the source code. It has to actually be in a release because extensions only work in published packages and not in not when you just build from source and run in dev mode. Let's see what else. There's a ton of other changes, to be honest. So we haven't released since beta 2. It's been a while, so I think this will be a good one. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, looks like next is updates from Peter on services.
Sure. Did a lot of triage and Docker stacks, or a lot of older issues lurking, given our push to try to get the community to maintain things in other repos, not necessarily lumping them all into one big repo. Started to reach out to folks that contributed things in the past and recommended either submitting recipes to the documentation or trying to get some people to pilot the cookie cutter for new project setup for Docker builds. Still a lot of things left to look at there, but I'm going through them slowly. I noticed, NB Viewer's been growing some PRs. Man, I know you've got one open there to fix pip 10. It looks like there's still a Python 2.7 issue with that. I can take a stab at it if you don't have time to get to it, Bang, because there's another PR I submitted there that and a few others from the community that'd be good to unblock. And I may take a stab at triaging NB Viewer next, just because there's over a couple hundred issues sitting there from over the years, just to see what's lurking, see what we can clean up.
Okay, great. Thanks, Peter. Looks like updates on Jupyter have our next.
Yeah, not a whole lot. We put out the big release of Jupyter last week that seems to be going reasonably well, and there's piling up a bunch of related releases for spawners and authenticators and the Helm chart and things that we should be getting ready to do. But that's all going well, so expect a number of smaller releases over the next few weeks.
All right, sounds good. So now I think that's all the notes that we have under the different subtopics on the agenda. At this point, if there's any else that hasn't been covered so far, anything that doesn't fall into the other categories, now would be the time to talk about it before we do a quick review of conferences, and then also a reminder to put the release notes at the very bottom of the agenda, just to recap and for documentation purposes, repeat the releases that are happening or that happened last week. Anything planned for this week or anything coming in the next 1 to 2 weeks should be repeated down there. But at this point, is there anything that doesn't fall into any of the other categories anyone wants to talk about? Sounds like a no. So the latest message with JupyterCon is actually a repeat. We're still looking for posters. The call for posters is going to be open through July 6th. So definitely encourage people in your network, share through Twitter, and in your conversations with people that is open for another couple of days, and we hope to see a lot of submissions on that. Regarding conferences and workshops, keep adding to this list as you see open call for speakers or events that you're planning on speaking at. Please continue adding them to this list. It looks like an event I can highlight is we're hosting our first ever PyData San Luis Obispo, or SLO event, here at Cal Poly State University, and Kyle Kelly will be our featured speaker, so we're looking forward to that. And then SciPy is the next big event in July, where we'll be speaking and presenting. So any other events or anything else for the agenda before we go ahead and sign off?
Yeah, actually, so in the Dropbox paper, Peter just asked a question that I think bears answering in a broader setting. So Peter's question was about the extension manager, and I mentioned that we might be shipping it disabled if that ends up being necessary. And so the question was, what about places where users simply don't have the permission or ability to install extensions? Will that disabling remain an option? And disabling is always an option for any extension, as it is already, either from a command line or by creating a build config or page config.json file. So it's already possible in any deployment to disable any extension. This particular one, the type of disabling we were considering was making it a user setting so that a sufficiently motivated user could go enable it in the UI. But if someone who's deploying it wants to disable any core extension, including this one, there are two ways to do it. One's from the command line, and one is from creating a build file that just says this is on the list of disabled extensions. There's also a command, Jupyter lab extension disable, and you put in the name of the extension. So that remains an option, and we knew that there would be environments where people would not want their users to install extensions.
Thanks for clarifying. I didn't know if it was going to be some kind of special extension or just a standard one you could disable.
No, it's standard, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Jessica, I see that you joined the call. Anything to add before we sign off?
I don't think we mentioned the Build-A-Binder stuff that's happening as well. I know, right? No one's mentioned that.
No.
The Binder team are also having a few Build-A-Binder events throughout Europe over the next couple months, and the first one is happening after SciPy in Birmingham in the UK. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Nice. Do those events have websites or meetups, or how are those being?
I think they're still working on it right now. The only thing I really know of is a GitHub repo.
Okay. All right. Well,
and also the Jupyter Hub team is looking to find their next monthly meeting date. It might happen this week. We haven't settled on the date yet, but it may happen it may be happening midday Pacific time, late in the evening, Central European time. But we'll update the notes as that comes along.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks for that update. And with that, we will go ahead and sign off. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great week.